Welcome to podcast Sarah and Michael.
I am looking at the sheer volume of geopolitical reports we have to get through today, and I'm starting to think we should have brewed a second pot of coffee.
Oh, or maybe a third. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a seriously heavy stack of reading,
Hmm.
literally and figuratively.
Yeah, no
But
kidding.
honestly, taking these massive, complex international shifts, pulling them apart, and figuring out how the structural gears actually turn, that is the best part of the job.
Oh, agreed. And the gears are definitely turning today. So, welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We are unpacking a highly anticipated moment on the global stage, and you are going to want to hear this.
Definitely.
Because today is Wednesday, May 13th, 2026. And right now, U.S. President Donald Trump has just touched down in Beijing.
Right.
He landed at 8:00 a.m. local time for this massive, high-stakes state visit. But looking at the briefings we've gathered, the wildest detail isn't the scale of the red carpet they rolled out at the airport.
No, it really isn't.
It's the nickname. The nickname Chinese netizens are affectionately using for Donald Trump right now, which is the nation builder.
Which is just, it is a brilliant piece of irony.
Yeah.
And it perfectly encapsulates this massive shift in the dynamic between these two countries. Because the last time he made this trip was nearly a decade ago, in 2017.
Right.
And he is walking into a fundamentally transformed country today, operating under Xi Jinping's unprecedented third term.
Which is exactly our mission for this deep dive. By looking closely at extensive reporting from BBC News Thai and PPTV HD 36, we are going to decode this new, highly confident China.
Exactly.
We're going to explore the mechanical shifts in their economy, the realities of this intense AI tech race, and how converging global crises are, forcing both of these massive superpowers to the negotiating table.
It's a lot to cover.
It is. So let's look at the immediate timeline first, just because it sets the stage for you. Tonight was the heavily choreographed airport arrival. But tomorrow, May 14th, that is when the heavy lifting begins.
Yeah, tomorrow's packed.
We're looking at a formal morning welcome ceremony, transitioning straight into a crucial bilateral meeting with Xi Jinping at the Great Hall of the People.
Right. Following that, there's an afternoon visit to the historic Temple of Heaven, and it caps off with a formal state dinner.
And then Friday, May 15, moves into a tighter, more functional gear.
Okay.
They begin with an informal morning tea, shift into a working lunch to basically hammer out the final language of any joint statements, and then Trump departs for Washington in the afternoon. So it is a schedule packed with traditional pageantry, sure, but the underlying psychology driving these meetings has shifted entirely since 2017.
Yeah, and Ali Wine from the International Crisis Group had a really fascinating observation about that psychological shift in the sources.
Oh, right, the parity argument.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He noted that in 2017, the Chinese delegation expended an immense amount of diplomatic capital just to prove a point. They needed to project to the world that Xi Jinping was operating on an equal geopolitical footing with the U.S. president.
They were actively asserting their status back then.
Right. But today, that aggressive assertion of parity isn't necessary because the baseline assumption has totally changed. It has.
Okay.
Because the U.S. government now formally categorizes China as a near-peer competitor.
Yikes.
And that is a very specific defense and diplomatic designation. It means the U.S. fundamentally acknowledges China as the most capable, technologically advanced rival it has ever faced.
But wait, let's unpack this. Because a formal designation in a Pentagon document doesn't just, spontaneously generate geopolitical confidence.
No, definitely not.
You don't earn near-peer status just by hosting elaborate dinners at the Forbidden City. So what is the actual structural shift over the last decade that allowed Beijing to stop trying to prove their parity and just assume it?
Well, the structural shift really comes down to a massive reallocation of state resources.
Okay.
To understand their current confidence, you have to look at Xi Jinping's heavy investment in what he terms new productive forces.
New productive forces.
Yeah. For decades, China's economic engine was driven by real estate and basic manufacturing. But now, they are forcefully steering capital away from speculative property development and pouring it into advanced tech and renewable infrastructure.
Wow. We are talking about vast, hyper-efficient solar and wind farms just blanketing the rugged northern provinces, and intense industrial automation completely rewiring the manufacturing supply chains in the south.
And the reporting really points to Chongqing as the ultimate microcosm of this strategy, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's this sprawling municipality in the southwest that has basically transformed from a gritty traditional manufacturing hub into what travel journalists are now calling a glowing cyberpunk 8D city.
The visual transformation alone is just staggering. I mean, the topography of Chongqing is incredibly vertical.
Right.
You have intricate street systems winding aggressively up steep mountainsides. You have public transit lines engineered to pass directly through the middle of residential high-rises.
Which is wild to see.
It really is. And the entire cityscape is heavily illuminated with massive neon blue and magenta lighting reflecting off the Yangtze River. It has become a massive cultural magnet, too. There is a viral trend right now where tourists stand on the riverbank at night, positioning their cameras to create this optical illusion where they pretend to eat the subway train as it emerges from a glowing building.
Yeah, I've seen those videos. They're everywhere.
And the cultural pull is so strong that Chongqing saw 2 million foreign tourists last year. They are directly taking advantage of China's recent visa-free entry policies.
Right.
They are pulling in numbers that actually rival traditional gateways like Beijing and Shanghai.
But, the underlying value of Chongqing isn't tourism. It is deep tech integration.
How so?
Well, BBC News Thai highlighted a business hub in the city where early childhood education is literally merging with advanced robotics.
Wait, really?
Yeah. In a 2-story laboratory, you have kindergartners observing robotic fish navigating water tanks, while highly articulated humanoid robots practice kung fu and execute complex choreography right next to them.
That is insane.
And it's well-funded. The municipal government is injecting around $12 billion into robotics this year alone. They're basically engineering Chongqing to be the Silicon Valley of Western China.
Okay, here is where I have to push back on that narrative, though.
Okay, go for it.
Because it sounds like they are strapping a turbocharger onto an engine block that is actively cracking under the pressure.
Ah, right, the debt.
Exactly. We know you can't build the future for free. A hyper-accelerated infrastructure and robotics push requires immense capital, and current reporting indicates this 30 million-person municipality is sitting on a staggering mountain of local debt.
It is a huge problem.
So how do you square this neon cyberpunk facade with the reality of their economic strain?
You're completely right to point that out, that local debt is the unspoken variable shaping everything right now.
Yeah.
The transition to new productive forces is incredibly expensive, and the legacy of their previous growth model is still dragging them down. The real estate sector is struggling to deleverage. Youth unemployment remains stubbornly high. Domestic consumption is heavily suppressed.
Right, people aren't spending.
Exactly. And you see this dual economy reality on the streets of Chongqing. Right in the shadow of those futuristic neon-lit skyscrapers, you have traditional neighborhoods where laborers are sorting vegetables and fruits by hand, hoping to scrape together a few dollars a day.
And a significant portion of that economic strain isn't just internal friction from, transitioning their economy.
Right.
It is directly tied to external pressure, specifically the ongoing tech friction with the United States, which brings us right back to why Donald Trump's arrival today is so critical.
Exactly. You cannot separate Chongqing's robotic ambitions from the broader tech war.
Right.
Let's look at the mechanics of those kung fu robots for a second. To make a humanoid robot function autonomously, to have it process visual data, maintain balance, and execute complex movements, it requires an incredibly capable localized brain.
The chips.
Yes, it requires high-end AI microchips to train the underlying models.
And the choke point there is that the absolute gold standard for those chips is designed by NVIDIA.
Yes, an American company.
Yeah.
And the U.S. recognized that bottleneck. In 2022, the Biden administration aggressively implemented export controls, basically blocking the sale of those top-tier AI chips to China.
Okay.
The strategic goal was to deliberately stunt China's capacity to train advanced artificial intelligence and throttle the exact kind of robotic development we are seeing in Chongqing.
But Trump actually adjusted that valve last year, didn't he?
He did, yeah. He introduced a slight relaxation of the policy, allowing certain advanced chips to flow into the Chinese market again, though he maintained strict embargoes on the absolute bleeding-edge architecture.
Interesting.
So it was enough of a loophole to keep the hardware flowing.
Yeah.
But the underlying threat of being cut off entirely remains a massive vulnerability for China's tech sector.
Which perfectly explains the Tuan Jianglo nickname, Trump the Nation Builder. Because it sounds paradoxical at first. From the outside, applying heavy tariffs and restricting microchip exports looks like an economic penalty. Why would Chinese citizens view the architect of those trade wars as a builder of their nation?
It is all about the mechanics of forced adaptation. Think of the U.S. trade policies and tariffs like applying a tourniquet to an arm.
Okay.
Yes, it causes immediate severe pain by cutting off the primary flow of easy trade and access to American technology.
Right.
But physiologically, when you restrict a major artery, the body is forced to grow entirely new collateral blood vessels to survive.
Wow. That's a great analogy.
Right. Trump's America First policies, his unpredictability, and his willingness to use tariffs as a weapon forced Beijing's hand. They realized the existential danger of relying on the American market or Silicon Valley hardware.
So they had to pivot.
Exactly. That pressure provided the exact political capital Xi Jinping needed to ruthlessly accelerate their drive toward complete self-reliance.
So essentially, the U.S. containment strategy inadvertently provided the catalyst for China's independence.
The data strongly supports that conclusion. Take the logistics restructuring happening right now. BBC News Thai profiled Lucia Chen, who is an electric vehicle seller based in Chongqing.
Okay.
When the U.S. heavily tariffed Chinese EVs tariffs that China absolutely refused to back down from, by the way, the domestic EV market faced a severe overcapacity problem. They needed somewhere to send those cars.
Right.
So China aggressively capitalized on a $5 billion direct overland rail link. This train route runs straight from Chongqing through the rugged terrain of Central Asia directly into the European Union.
And the mechanical advantage of that rail line is massive. I mean, it entirely bypasses traditional maritime choke points like the Strait of Malacca, which the U.S. Navy heavily influences.
Exactly.
And rail is faster than ocean freight and significantly cheaper than air transport.
Precisely. And for sellers like Lucia Chen, it is a lifeline. She is highly optimistic because she has a secured physical line to sell her vehicles into entirely new markets.
That makes sense.
And the macroeconomic result of building these alternative arteries is striking. Exports to the U.S. have dropped by roughly 20% in recent years.
Wow.
Yeah. The U.S. is no longer China's dominant trading partner. They've been relegated to third place, sitting behind Southeast Asia and the European Union.
But I have to ask, is a pivot to the EU and Southeast Asia, even with a $5 billion train line, truly enough to replace the sheer volume and spending power of the American consumer market? Or are they just making the best of a severely compromised hand?
Well, it is not a perfect one-to-one replacement, no. And the suppressed domestic consumption we talked about earlier proves they're still hurting.
Right.
But it is enough to ensure survival and project leverage. They have proven they will not culturally or economically collapse without unfettered access to the U.S. market.
Which fundamentally changes the dynamic of the negotiations happening tomorrow.
Completely.
If China is no longer solely reliant on the U.S. as an economic lifeline, what actual leverage does Trump have when he sits down in the Great Hall of the People? Like, what is the concrete agenda for both leaders?
So both men are walking into that room needing very specific victories. For Trump, the goals are split into two distinct tracks, economic and geopolitical.
Okay.
Economically, the current trade agreements between the two nations are incredibly fragile. He needs a tangible, headline-grabbing win to take back to his political base in Washington. He wants to force Beijing to commit to massive, verifiable purchases of American agricultural and manufactured goods.
And the geopolitical track.
That centers heavily on the Middle East. Reporting from PPTV HD 36 highlights that a severe ongoing war involving the U.S. and Israel against Iran is serving as a major backdrop to this state visit.
And the ripple effects of that conflict are just reshaping global markets. I mean, the disruption has caused global oil prices to spike dramatically.
Right.
Which, going back to Lucia Chen in Chongqing, actually acts as a massive domestic catalyst for her industry.
Oh, it really does.
Because China is a net importer of energy, those pump price shocks are forcing middle-class Chinese consumers to abandon internal combustion engines and rapidly adopt electric vehicles.
It is a fascinating mechanical chain reaction. A geopolitical crisis in the Middle East directly accelerates the EV transition in Western China.
Wild.
But Trump wants to use China's economic weight to halt that crisis. Because China is a massive purchaser of Iranian oil, they hold significant monopsony leverage over Tehran.
Right.
So Trump's goal is to compel China to step in, use that economic leverage, and broker a binding deal with Iran to either de-escalate the regional war or halt their nuclear ambition.
But that's a massive ask. If China successfully brokers that deal, it certainly gives Trump the immediate de-escalation he wants, but doesn't it also permanently cement China's status as the indispensable mediator on the global stage?
It absolutely does. But, for the average Chinese citizen, the geopolitics are secondary to their immediate economic reality.
How so?
Well, the reports feature a local nail salon worker in Chongqing who provides a very sobering perspective. Her personal investments have tanked recently, largely due to the global economic slump tied to the instability in the Middle East. Yeah. And when asked about Trump's visit, her message was blunt. She just wants him to stop creating chaos.
And that sentiment resonates broadly. While younger demographics, like fashion students in Beijing, might still view the U.S. as a cultural beacon of creativity, the working class is exhausted by the volatility.
Yeah, they really are.
They view the aggressive America First posture as a direct disruption to the stability of the global supply chain they rely on.
And underlying all of this economic anxiety is a much quieter but far more dangerous concern raised by security analysts regarding the AI race.
Right, the AI threat.
The competition between Washington and Beijing to develop sovereign AI capabilities is so intense that both nations are largely ignoring a shared existential threat.
The lone bad actor scenario.
Yes. Analysts are pointing out that while the U.S. and China are locked in a struggle over NVIDIA chips and humanoid robotics, the barrier to entry for catastrophic cyber warfare is dropping rapidly.
It's terrifying.
It is. The fear is that an unaffiliated bad actor, using loosely regulated advanced open-source AI, could autonomously hack into global health infrastructure or compromise nuclear command systems.
Wow.
So the strategic argument is that tomorrow's meeting shouldn't just be about trade deficits. It needs to establish a joint framework to prioritize global security over superpower rivalry before the technology just completely outpaces their ability to contain it.
It is basically the geopolitical equivalent of two drivers aggressively sideswiping each other while the bridge ahead of them is out.
That's exactly what it is.
So we know Trump needs agricultural purchases to appease his base and Iranian mediation to stabilize oil markets. What is Xi Jinping's ultimate objective for this highly choreographed visit?
Xi Jinping's primary objective is the projection of unshakable stability. Look at the international landscape right now. Trump's reliance on aggressive tariffs has alienated not just rivals, but deep-seated U.S. allies.
Right.
The U.S. posture is widely viewed internationally as chaotic.
Right. While the U.S. is engaging in trade friction with traditional partners, Beijing is actively rolling out the red carpet for Western leaders from the UK, Canada, and Germany.
Which is exactly why this visit is a crucial stage for Xi. Even if no massive, groundbreaking trade deal is signed tomorrow, the optics alone serve his purpose.
The optics are everything.
Exactly. By meticulously hosting the U.S. president after a decade of hostility, Xi is demonstrating to the rest of the world that China is the mature, predictable adult in the room. He is signaling that despite U.S. containment efforts, China remains fully integrated into the global community, entirely open for business, and a reliable partner in an increasingly volatile world.
So to synthesize this massive geopolitical puzzle for you, when Donald Trump steps into the Great Hall of the People tomorrow, he is not negotiating with the nation he dined with in 2017.
No, not at all.
He is facing a country that absorbed the intense pressure of U.S. tariffs and tech embargoes and fundamentally re-engineered its economy in response.
Right.
They have reallocated their capital into neon-lit tech hubs like Chongqing, forged multi-billion-dollar overland trade arteries to bypass U.S. maritime dominance, and positioned themselves so centrally that Washington is now asking them to mediate major global wars.
It represents a profound structural shift in the global balance of power. And analyzing the mechanics of that shift leaves us with a highly provocative question to consider, long after this state visit concludes.
What is the question?
Well, if a decade of aggressive tariffs, trade wars, and technological embargoes actually provided the necessary catalyst for China to aggressively pursue self-reliance and global leadership,
Right.
could it be that the very containment tools the United States deployed were actually the blueprints for their rivals' ultimate success?
Wow. That is a critical thought to end on. It forces you to look at the mechanics of isolationist policies and ask whether applying pressure in an interconnected world actually weakens your competitor or simply trains them to survive without you.
It really fundamentally changes how you analyze every tariff and trade restriction going forward.
It does, and that is where we will leave you today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the headlines, keep looking at the structural gears beneath the surface of the global stage, and we will catch you next time.